Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé, let's watch. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. As I always say, everything I'm about to say is completely speculative based on very little information. Let's watch.
We visited your mom, and I really was confused when your mom, she looked at me, and I was cooking, and she said, hooker.
No, no one did not call you a hooker. No one calls you a name. It's always a misunderstanding. It's the same thing, no matter where we go, no matter who we're...
Okay, so Natalie is telling a story, and she's saying that, Mike, your mom called me hooker. And Mike is saying, no, that didn't happen. It's always a misunderstanding. Now, I'm guessing Mike is saying that because this isn't the first time that Natalie has invented something in her mind, or at least according to Mike, anyway. And so he doesn't believe her. He thinks that she is paranoid, or she hears things that aren't really happening, or is convinced of things. And that'll happen when you have an emotion, when you think that someone is against you and you hear a word from them and it's like, was that hooker or was that some other word? And you have a negative valence associated with that person, it's more likely that you're going to hear the negative word from them. So maybe that's what's going on. Who knows? But at the very least, Mike should say this: honey, I wasn't there. If my mom called you a hooker, that is completely out of line. And if that happened, then I'm on your side completely. That my mom should not have said that. That's ridiculous. On the other hand, honey, I don't think my mom would have said something like that. It doesn't sound, I don't think I've ever heard her say that word. She can be mean and she can be stubborn, but she doesn't just randomly call people names like that. It's just not in her nature. I'm not saying she didn't do it because I wasn't there, but I don't think she would have said that. Maybe we should talk with her and find out what happened there. But honey, if she said that, I am completely on your side. And if you think she said that, I completely understand why you're upset. Okay. So why couldn't Mike just say that? Let's see if he gets to that point.
Things have been definitely different between me and Natalie since we come back from Oklahoma. I'm still very upset because the events that occurred were very disappointing. Natalie was in the wrong, but I have avoided talking to her because we can just never get anywhere. And I want to move on.
Ding, ding. I am avoiding talking to her because we never get anywhere. Yes, truer words have never been spoken. Since the beginning of watching these two in the valleys of their conflict, avoidance is the theme, particularly from Mike. From the very beginning of the conflict through the middle until the end, avoidance is the tactic. And again, you've heard me talk about it before, but just a brief little synopsis of why people do that in general. I don't know about Mike. Is early in life, they learned, look, there's really no point in getting into it with someone because you're just going to get hurt. And so, you know what? I'm just going to turn away. And if ever there's a conflict or ever there's vulnerability, if ever there's hurt or uncertainty or a threat, run, always avoid. Avoid physically, avoid emotionally, avoid verbally, always turn off and always turn away because there's no point in going towards. And of course, what happens in that situation is every time you do that, avoid, it causes a lot of people to dislike you, which gives you more reason to avoid, and your attachment needs never get met.
I talk to my mom, and for mother who raised her child good and proper way, it's kind of hard to hear what her child is coping with.
So what, I'm a bad child? My mom's a bad mom?
I came to America not to be called hooker.
That's what you just said. So my mom's a bad mom?
My mom just said, the point is, my mom said, Natalie, why would you call you hooker?
Whatever, Natalie.
So now Natalie could do better by saying, honey, I know you think that your mom didn't call me a hooker, but I am almost positive that that's what she said. Now, maybe she didn't say that, but it really sounded like that's what she said. You weren't there, Mike, so you can't really say you didn't hear. And sure, sometimes I misinterpret things, and maybe I did it in this time too. But I was certainly getting a negative vibe from her anyway. And then I don't know, I just felt like that's what she said to me. And so I guess now, what is Natalie looking for in this moment? I'm guessing she's looking for validation. I'm guessing she's looking for some agreement. Or is she looking for some excuse? What's the point in her doubling down on this? if I were Natalie in this situation, I'd be like, okay, well, clearly Mike isn't believing me. He'll never believe me. What do I want out of this situation? Well, what I'm looking for is validation and connection with my husband. I want to feel secure. So I'd go to him and I'd say, okay, honey, okay, I know I said that your mom called me a hooker. Honestly, I don't really know what she said. It really sounded like she said a hooker. I'm not saying your mom is a bad person. I'm not saying she's the sort of person that would say that, but it sounded like she was saying that to me. And there was the butcher shop thing, and I don't know, I was just getting kind of a bad vibe from her. Now, maybe I was having a bad attitude as well, which is my responsibility and I'm sorry for it, but I guess I'm just looking for some validation that you understand where I'm coming from. Okay, if Natalie said something like that, maybe Mike would validate her. Hard to say, but now they're escalating. And he is now stonewalling. He is now standing up and going, whatever, Natalie, whatever. You're crazy, and he's walking away. This does not bode well for the rest of their relationship.
I have a name, and it's not a hooker.
My mom was very nice. You're just saying my mom's bad, and I was not raised right because your mom's so good and raised you right. You're basically putting my mom down right now. Stop.
I asked my mom
You're
what should I
pissing me
do
off.
because my mom doesn't understand why your mother called me hooker.
Quit saying stupid.
Yikes. So now it's escalating, and she just keeps hammering on this idea. Like, what's the point of that? Now, if that's what she heard the mom say, I get it, I guess, but clearly Mike isn't receiving it well. You have to come at it from a different angle. She just keeps doubling down, and I don't know what is her goal with that, especially once she runs into the wall. And then for Mike, what's his objective here? I wonder. I think I had speculated that even before they got married, they had both decided they did not like each other. And, or now, what's a better way of putting it? That before they got married last season, there was a significant part of them that was extremely ambivalent about being in a relationship with the other person. There was still some shred of hope that it might work out. And they strangely avoided their way into a marriage and into getting married, here's one speculation, is the two of them avoided the decision to leave the relationship, even though a large part of them both wanted to leave the relationship. Both of them avoided until the very end, until she was backed up into a corner legally that either they got married that day or she was going to have to be deported, or, she would be illegally in the United States, or she was going to have to travel during the coronavirus on a sudden basis without being able to make any plans. I think she was going to have to stay in Europe for a while before she went back home, somewhere in Europe. Anyway, so they avoided, backed into a corner, and then they had to get married in order for her life not to be, not to fall apart. And then they continue to avoid, they continue to not validate each other, not reach out, not reveal themselves to each other, not give the other person another chance to take care of them. And their relationship has deteriorated until we get to this point, which does not look very good at all.
I worked really hard for my diplomas. And you know what your mom said to me? She said, it doesn't matter what you study 6 years. You gonna be translated like your mom said. You're gonna earn so much money.
Okay, so she is hurt by what the mom was saying. Now, what Mike should say in this situation is, okay, Natalie, I hear you. And if that's the way my mom made you feel, I'm sorry. And personally, I love my mom. But I hear that she said things that bothered you, and I don't know what to say about that. I apologize on her behalf, I guess. I would imagine that my mom was actually trying to help, but maybe it didn't go, I guess it didn't go over well. I'm sorry about that. Just say something like that. Like, I hear you. I'm guessing my mom said something that bothered you, and I get it. And I wish you would give my mom a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because I think she's a great person, but you don't have to like her. That's a differentiated thing to say. You hear me talk about differentiation. It's like in that moment, Mike is like, okay, my wife is against my mom. Now, the knee-jerk reaction is I want to stop my wife from having that feeling because I love my mom and I don't want my wife hating my mom. The other thing is I don't want the two of them fighting all the time, and I don't want Natalie to have those thoughts and those feelings. Okay, her feelings are giving me anxiety. Her thoughts and ideas about what happened are threatening to me, and so her mood and her thoughts and her emotions are getting inside of me and threatening me. Okay. But differentiated people will be able to detect they feel the feelings, but then they think, well, wait a second. Is it a good idea for me to somehow try to get rid of those feelings in this other person? Probably not. It's probably not going to work. So I feel the threat, but I need to not let that guide me in the moment. I need to think rationally in this moment and think, okay, what's really going to help in this situation? What is going to help both of us and my mom? Okay, what's probably going to help? Well, at the very least, it's not going to help if I attack my wife right now. It's probably, at the very least, it's going to help just to hear her. It doesn't hurt just to hear her. I think that's what my wife is looking for. The other thing is being able to differentiate between someone else's feelings and thoughts and your own, and being like, okay, whoa. I'm feeling anxious about my wife's feelings right now. I'm noticing those feelings inside of me. It's starting to freak me out because of those reasons I said earlier. But you know what? These are just my wife's feelings. I don't need to absorb her feelings right now. And so she has a weird point of view, according to Mike, that my mom called her a hooker and she feels attacked when I don't think my mom attacked her. But that's her feelings, and she's entitled to her feelings, and that's okay. I don't have to do anything about that. All right. So then you approach this situation of like, okay, she's having feelings. I'm over here not having feelings because she's having the feelings. I'm not going to overlap our personalities in this moment. I will care for her. I will listen to her, but she's having a moment. All right. Undifferentiation, fusion is she's having feelings. I'm having feelings. Oh my God, panic. How do I get rid of these feelings? Natalie, you're stupid. And this is a shortcut that almost everyone does, if not everyone. Whenever you have a feeling in someone else that you're threatened by, one of the very first things anyone else will do is try to make the other person feel stupid and small in this very, very misguided attempt to get the person not to have that feeling. And I'm guessing that's what Mike is going to do right now. Let's watch.
I don't care about money. I care about what I want to do in my life, and I fight for it. Let you know that I'm just not a girl from nowhere. I'm a girl with education who has morals.
I don't get what
and who is hardworking.
So what
I
are you
just
trying
want
to...
respect from your mom.
My mom's giving you all respect. You need to give respect to people. Respect is not...
So again, what's the higher road? The higher road, the more functional road is, you're right, my mom should respect you. I don't know if she didn't respect you, but you clearly felt disrespected by her, and I wasn't there during those conversations. And, my mom can be a little abrasive sometimes. So, yeah, I hear you. You do deserve respect, absolutely. And you do deserve to have the job that you feel is, respectable and based on your experience. And I'm with you on that. Like, it's better to agree. That's all you have to do. Find things you can agree on in the other, particularly when you see Natalie escalating an emotion, but instead he is fighting for the mom. This is classic triangulation. The two of them have a conflict. They triangulated the mom into their conflict, and now they're talking about the mom when really what they're talking about is their conflict between each other.
Not given. You must earn it. It is not given. Okay? You're talking like everyone needs to respect you and look at you all high and mighty because you have 2 degrees. It doesn't matter.
It counts. Like, nobody respects me.
Because you...
So I think both of them are having varying degrees of anxiety. I think Natalie, her anxiety was going up, and then that caused Mike's anxiety to go up. And now I think Natalie's anxiety is coming down a little bit. You can hear it. You can hear it in Natalie's voice, and then now you can hear it in his voice, where I think she's coming. And that's another aspect of fusion, where anxiety will move very quickly through systems. And one person will feel the anxiety and the tension and the rejection fears and all the upsettedness, and then download it to someone else because of that fusion, that lack of differentiation. The other person will absorb it, and it'll affect them. And if there's a lot of people around, it'll get passed around. And by the way, if you're watching this and you're feeling your anxiety going up, the anxiety is now affecting you, which is fine, but what do you do with it? Differentiated people can see their way through it. Undifferentiated people cannot. And being a therapist extremely important, obviously, to be able to be as differentiated as possible. No one is completely differentiated by any means, but being a therapist and doing a lot of personal work, going to a lot of therapy, having a lot of wisdom, having a lot of experience, having a lot of your own support system is extremely important. Because imagine this, because I've had couples fight like this in my office, and worse, by the way. So for me, I need to be able to watch this for an hour and several hours during the day, because several clients, and be able to stay relatively differentiated because, one, I need to think straight in order to help them. But two, being differentiated as you're being triangulated in will actually help them to be differentiated.
Never listen to anyone.
But I want to choose work I want to do, not a translator, definitely. For TV channel, I will translate. Because it's what I know.
Wow.
It's I learn. For
Is
TV
that
channel,
what
I
me and
do.
my mom were suggesting to you?
Sarcasm, not a good idea. This is contempt. This is completely dysfunctional. We all do it. Sometimes I even do it on this reaction video series. And it's hard not to do it sometimes, but we need to label it as such and say, not okay. If you're upset, if you're flooded, then fine, but that doesn't justify contemptuous sarcasm.
Wow. You literally never listen. It's only what you want, Natalie. Like, there's no point in talking to it because you just want to do what you want to do, and you're going to step over everyone in your path, and it doesn't matter.
So I think they are talking about completely different things in this moment, if I was to speculate. What she's talking about is, I have felt disrespected ever since I landed here in the United States. I feel disrespected by you. I feel disrespected by your mom. I feel disrespected by other Americans. I feel disrespected by the 90 Day Fiancé crowd, the fans of 90 Day. I feel disrespected by everyone. I feel sad and hurt and alone and disrespected. I imagine that is where she is coming from right now, which would make total sense to me. And I think but instead what she's saying is, I will be respected. Your mom disrespected me about my, because the interactions between the mom and Natalie, I wouldn't call the mom being extremely disrespectful to Natalie. What the mom was saying was, hey, how about you get a job? I think it's important that everyone works. Have you thought about being a translator? She just kind of threw it out there. And for Natalie, she was like, no, I will be I can't remember the exact career that she wanted to go on. And the mom was like, oh, all right. Now, you could say the mom's tone wasn't great. And why would the mom even ask those questions? It's not really her place. So you could say that's disrespectful for sure. But on the scale of disrespect, is it extremely high? I don't know. It didn't seem that way. But we could imagine that for Natalie, it was just one other example where she is feeling disrespected and she wants someone to hear her. But because of her avoidance and her stuffing her feelings, I think she can only talk about one element of the disrespect. I'm guessing she would love to say all the other things that she feels disrespected about. Maybe even before she even met Mike, she has a lot of pent up feelings of disrespect. Who knows? But that seems to be where she's coming from, because she's really laser focused on the mom, where you would think she would just say, like, I don't know, it's just my mother-in-law. She was disrespectful to me, moving on in life. Anyway, that's just my guess. And I think what Mike is actually, where he is coming from right now, is he is desperate for love. He is desperate for affection. He's desperate for attachment security. And from the very beginning, he's been wanting someone to be there for him, someone to love, someone to spend the rest of his life with, someone to be nice with, someone to be calm and cool with, someone to make jokes with, someone to just sit and watch TV with. I think that's what he's looking for, which a lot of people want, right? I'm guessing Natalie wants that too. And so for him, he's just desperate for that. And as she gets angry, he perceives it as an attack on him. And I think that's been happening from the very beginning. Whenever she gets upset, and sometimes she is attacking him, particularly in the previous seasons. But I think he perceives that as just like, she's upset about my mom. And he even saw him saying earlier, oh, I see, you're criticizing me and you're criticizing my mom's a bad mom, which of course he takes offense to that. So this is an attack on me, which means that you can't love me. If you have negative ideas about me, if you're going to attack me in these little ways or attack my mom, this means that you are not secure. This means you're a threat. This means that I can't feel safe with you, and I'm desperate to feel safe with you. And so instead of saying that, he says, you need to earn respect, and you are always causing problems, and you are making stuff up in your mind. But I think that's the top layer of this vast sea of wanting security and just desperately looking to her of just like, will you please just love me and be safe and create like a warm place where I can be loved? I'm guessing that's where it's coming from. Total speculation, though.
Will not step over my morals. This is for sure.
Right. But you'll
This I
step
can
over.
swear
But you'll
to you.
step over me and everyone else.
I will not step over my morals. Ever.
Right. Right. Your morals.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm guessing neither one of them even know what they're talking about at this point. She's saying, I will not give up on my morals. And he's like, your morals, what do you know, and I'd have that question too. What is she talking about, her morals? Okay, let's see. What is she talking about? My morals. I'm guessing what she's saying is that she has a moral, a value of being respected, that it's not good, it's not okay for people to disrespect other people for no reason. And that's a value of hers, which makes sense. And I'm going to stand my ground. I'm not going to allow people to put me down. I'm not going to allow people to push me beyond a certain limit. And I imagine that she is not just talking about the mom, that she's talking about a lot of things, but she is only talking about the mom because she doesn't feel safe to talk about those other things. It's just a guess.
But at the end of the day, you were being disrespectful towards my mom. It was uncalled for, you know? Like, there's no need for this. Natalie needs to understand that and move on.
Michael, could you come?
I'm right here. I'm walking around my house just the way I want to.
Right, which is an avoidant thing to do, which is, okay, I guess I have to kind of be present because otherwise that would be bad for me just to disappear and abandon her. But on the other hand, I cannot tolerate being vulnerable, and so I'm going to be in the hallway around the corner. It's a very common thing for avoidant people to do. Now, I wouldn't say common. When I see this, usually what this means is avoidant attachment style due to emotional neglect or abuse growing up.
Listen, I'm trying so hard, but I want to make it clear with your mom, you know? I'm sorry, I don't know.
You're not sorry. You're
I mean,
not.
I don't know.
You're literally not sorry.
I don't know.
I don't
I'm
want to talk about it
sorry.
anymore. I literally, just stop.
Wrong or something.
Just stop.
So, yikes. Natalie is now saying, I don't know what I'm saying, I'm sorry. On one hand, you're thinking, well, what were you just saying earlier? What's happening right now? That you would say all those things earlier, and now you're saying you're sorry. The other thing we can say is that they've been here before. Is Natalie saying this because she feels like she has to, because she knows that he won't apologize? And she says, oh boy, we're in this fight right now. I know from experience the only way we're going to get out of this is if I make the first move. So I'm going to apologize. So we're seeing that pattern again too. That warms Mike up a little bit. He's able to sit down, but now he is still stonewalling her. I don't want to talk about it. She's saying, hey, I'm sorry. I don't want to talk about it. Okay, it's just more of that stonewalling. And why do people, now, on the internet, people will say stonewalling is bad and, you know, it's but when people are stonewalling, it's because they have extreme distress levels going on in them. And why do they have extreme distress levels going on when other people wouldn't in that situation? It's because of past traumas or extreme discomfort with conflict. And so they're so flooded with emotions that they have to do something. They have, because they're not aware of the emotions, or they don't know how to calm their distress, or they don't know how to reach out. They don't trust other people to reach out. They will stonewall. They'll be like, knock it off. You know, it's like just being overwhelmed, but they'll come across as if they're being mean. And one of the things that avoidant people will do is, one, they won't notice their feelings, and two, they won't want to communicate their feelings. So when a avoidant person stonewalls with you, it'll seem like they don't even care. Like it's just like flippant to them. It's just like, I'm done with this, or yeah, I'm not going to talk about it. Kind of the way, just look at that face that Mike has right now. That's a common presentation. And you look at it and you go, he doesn't care. He has no emotions. He's a robot. But it's the opposite. They have so much emotion that they have to do this because they don't trust other people with their emotions.
Play with the rat. Train the rat. Here you go. Show the rat some tricks.
It's not my fault, you know?
It is your fault. Just stop
It's
talking about
not.
it. Just stop talking about it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You're the only one not getting it.
Okay. Okay,
This is not how I wanted our conversation to go.
So, yeah, things are not going well. What should Mike be doing? He should be saying, okay, honey, thanks for apologizing. It's very nice of you. Now, can we talk about what happened and revisit the conversation instead of just saying, shut up, don't talk about it, knock it out. Like, the way he's talking to her is troubling, for sure.
Mike thinks it's okay. His mom treated me this way. He doesn't care. But I heard her very clear, and I think it's bull. But at the end of the day, I don't want to keep fighting with my husband. So I feel like I'm the one who has to apologize in order to move on. At least for now.
Right, exactly. They've been doing this over and over and over again. They are in this pattern where it's getting worse and worse and worse, where, how would I characterize it? Something will happen that will trigger Natalie, and she will communicate it in a way that is very triggering to Mike. You could say that Natalie is undifferentiated in the way that she's communicating it, or she's communicating it in a way that is hard to understand or something, whatever. But we could say that something will trigger her, which will cause her to feel sad or rejected or something. And she will try to communicate that through various different ways to Mike, either by just saying, here's what happened. Your mom called me a hooker, or by being silent and sad, or by crying, or by giving him the silent treatment, or something along those lines. There'll be some communication, but I'm guessing the cycle might usually begin with her getting distressed. Then Mike will shut her down, or will be distant, or won't listen, or won't validate, or will get defensive, or will stonewall or move away, which causes her more distress. Then she sees, I've pushed things too far. If I don't repair this right away, then we're probably going to get a divorce or break up, and that will be bad, and I don't want that. So I guess I have to apologize. I apologize. And he's like, okay, fine. She apologized. I could feel safe now. And she's like, okay, but this isn't over. And I'm only kind of apologizing because I'm not really sorry. I'm only saying this so that we can actually move on with our day. And then they hit this holding pattern. She gets triggered, and the whole cycle happens all over again. That's what it seems like from the outside watching this show. Who knows, because I have no idea. I'd have to ask them. But it certainly seems like that's a pattern. And as a couples therapist, I'm often looking for that. I'm often looking for what are the patterns, because 99% of the time, couples have extremely predictable patterns like this, extremely predictable. When you're in it, it's hard to predict. And when you're in it, it's hard to explain. But from the outside, if you're trained in systems theory, you can often, with a lot of assessment, you can usually detect the cycle. And once I know the cycle as a therapist, I can intervene on it. But it often requires me understanding each of their personalities and their relational traumas. I don't know these individuals. I don't know anything about their background. I have no knowledge of their history or their childhood. So if I did know more about that, I'm guessing I would have a much stronger conceptualization.
I apologize, but I cannot forgive and just forget.
The other element to Mike's presentation is one of superiority and talking down to her, making her feel small, making her seem like she's irrational and this hysterical, emotional person. So I feel like that needs to be added into the cycle, which of course is going to cause more distress for Natalie. If you haven't become a patron of the podcast yet, you can do so now by going to patreon.com. That's how we know that you like what we are doing. If there's one thing that you want to do for us, if you dig what we're doing, is becoming a patron of the podcast. A lot of you have already done that, and thank you so much for that. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.